Today on the Internet Woodworker, we're going to go ahead and build this, a Ron Hock shoulder plane kit. I got this at Woodcraft for about 80-90 bucks a few months ago, just getting around to building it. You can also get these planes at www.hocktools.com, as well as you can pick up other plane kits, as well as their excellent line of plane blades. I thought this would be a good project for us to build. So let's go ahead and take a look. We got directions. Got seems to be all the wood. And this, which pretty sure is probably the plane blade. The wood is already milled. You don't really have to do anything to it. The angles are already cut. So all you gotta do with this is pretty much assemble it. It's made of beech and bobinga, two woods that I haven't used yet, so that's going to be kind of interesting. All the pieces are here: the wedge, the sides, the stock. Now the directions here are a little bit hard for me. There's one picture at the top, but it's all text, and I have a hard time with directions that don't. A picture says 1,000 words. Now, if a picture says 1,000 words, a video says 1,000,000 words. And if you go to www.hocktools.com, Ron Hock, go ahead and he put together videos on how to assemble these planes. I suggest, if you're putting this plane together, you take the 6 minutes or whatever it takes to watch that video. It clears a lot up. What Ron Hock says to do is to dry fit everything first. The end should come up towards the end there. And he just holds them together with some spring clamps temporarily, like that. And we'll line this one up like that. Okay. And he taps everything. And he'll hit that, just make sure it's snug with a hammer. So the next step he does is he go ahead and he'll dry fit this blade. How do we do this? Wiggle in it. It's not fitting. It's not fitting. Oh, there we go. Oh, no. Yep, there we go. Okay, just took a little finesse. So basically what we want to do then is we want to adjust it so this blade just doesn't barely come out. And we're there. That's where we're at. So, that being said, I'm going to wiggle that blade out. And I'm going to go ahead and actually put on some beefier clamps so we can do the next step, which is drill the holes. So, set up a 1/4 inch drill in the drill bit. Now they say to do this just by using a handheld drill, because these pegs really are kind of just temporary until everything's set up. They're going to eventually be removed when we go ahead and do this. Part of me is anal and wants to have these go straight through, so I'm going to try them over here at the drill press. The problem is this gets very wieldy. And it's really quite hard to hold and do everything. So I'm starting to see why they probably use the hand drill. I could probably just do this on the bench a hell of a lot easier. Okay, there are the 4 holes. You can go ahead and take it out of the clamps now. We won't need those clamps until we go and glue it up. So, but we have a couple more things we need to do. Just assemble this. Okay, one of the things we want to do is we're going to partially assemble it. We're going to put the dowels in. What I want to do now is they say we want to go ahead and mark the area so we know not to where to put glue, not where to put who and the what in there. So I'm just going to take this pencil and mark Okay, so I went ahead and I did both sides. I put the pins in, flipped it over, and I marked both sides. I don't really show that in the video. Kind of confused me a little, but we need to know not to put glue in that area because the blade's going to be there. Now they tell us now's a good time to test fit the wedge, which they say they're going to do more finagling with this. But it's a little bit of play. Take off. And I say just, you can use a plane or sandpaper. So I just did a little of that. And they say don't worry too much because you're gonna be doing more adjustment with it down the road. So I think we're good there. They say also take any burrs off of this, out of the hole. Just lightly remove them from both sides. It says to grab some paste wax. I went out and bought some Minwax paste wax here. I didn't have any. And put some on this Q-tip like they do in the video, and they just go ahead and put it on the edges so the glue doesn't stick. Sounds like a good idea. As well as in the area here that we don't want glue to stick to. Now it's time to go ahead and apply the glue. I'm going to take my regular type bond. You could use white glue here. I really don't think it matters. The key is we want an even coat without trying not to get any glue where the blade would be, because that'll cause some issues. Okay, I got that all pretty much clamped up. Let that cure a little bit, because then we want to go ahead and clean out partially cured glue. Okay, now I allowed this glue to set up a little bit. It's getting a little gummy. What I want to do is clean out any of the glue squeeze out down where the blade will go. So I can go ahead and let this cure completely. Now what I'm going to probably do with this is I'm going to go ahead and let this cure overnight. It's getting late, but there is something I can do. I can move on and start getting this blade ready. So I can flatten the back, though you can tell it has been flattened and sharpened at Hock Tools. I'm going to go ahead and probably flatten it just a little more. You can still see some grinding marks. First thing is I'm going to go ahead and sharpen the back. And I don't want to round, so I want to put good pressure. I'm not holding really the tang back here because that could cause me to rock it. Not only will I round my stone over, but this won't be flat. So what I'm doing is I'm holding up here with a lot of pressure on this finger, and it seems to be doing a good job. Okay, went ahead for that grit, and I'm not seeing any more grinding marks that I do back here. They're all gone. Now, one of the things in the podcast for the Sawdust Chronicles when I was sharpening, somebody made a note that I didn't wipe off the blade when I went to go switch grits. You don't want to keep the grits of the two, and I knew that ahead of time. And I thought maybe, well, it was something I did in editing. So I went back and looked after I responded. And it turns out I didn't do that. I didn't wipe it off. Mistakes like that really can mess up your stones and stuff. So make sure you wipe this off. And I usually like to wipe off the stone of the slurry before I flip it over. To the 6000 grit. And now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to take my $12 gauge and the blade for the plane. I'm going to go ahead and stick it in my jig. I do have a problem here. I cannot get this down low enough to get the right angle. So I got to try to put it on this part, but it's not going to be holding very well. Okay, that's barely holding on there. So I'm going to really focus down here and just kind of guide with that. Okay, the guide didn't work so well. Couldn't get the right angle because of the way the blade is shaped. You know, it wanted to hold right here to have the right angle, and it just wasn't doing a good job. So I'm actually going to go ahead and try this by hand. I'm just going to try to do. You don't want to rock it. So you really, I tend to go slower here. I flipped over the stone, put some water on it. I'm going to go ahead and do the 6000 grit. I can actually see the reflection of the light bulb in this. Not too bad. So I'm going to set that aside. Now the plain body is still curing. It's over there on the floor, all clamped up, ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and let that cure overnight.
Okay. This is really well dried up. 2 days have passed since I did do the initial gluing. I didn't get a chance to come out here yesterday. So I can go ahead and unclamp it, see how it looks. Forgot to put tape or wax those, but luckily they came off pretty good. Now I got some glue buildup here, and I do have some I must have missed that I'm going to have to get in there and clean up. So I'm going to clean this up with a chisel. I'll just go ahead and trim these pegs off flush. I'm just using a chisel. They don't have to be perfect because we're going to cut that whole peg area off the plane anyway. I'm going to go ahead and sand this nice and flush. I've moved the paper to over here by the fence, and now I'm going to lightly do the bottom to kind of clean that up. Sanded the sides, squared everything up. So, next step is I can go ahead and start fitting the blade and opening up the mouth. And I'll try. I don't want to go too far. I can always take more off, but I can't take less off. Fit the blade. It's still not clearing, so I got a little more to go. Kind of have a lot here to take off, so I'm going to go ahead and
Now I'm going to go ahead and try again. Okay, I just got a tiny little bit more, so I'll go back to the file. I don't want to risk taking too much off with the chisel. Taking my time here. I don't want to go too far. If I go too far, well, then the plane's not going to work right. I want that, well, according to the video, I want the mouth opening there with the blade in there to be real as small as possible. The smaller the possible, the better they say the plane will work. So I keep trying. It just clears coming out of the opening, but there really is no opening there yet. So I'm going to open up a tiny bit wider. Okay, pretty good. I can adjust it more later. Now we can go ahead and fit the wedge. I got to take a little more off the tip of right up in here. Take some wood off here. Go ahead and try fitting that again. The wedge is in place. Now they tell me to go and square up the bottom, I guess. I'm sure when the wedge is in and the blade is in, it might alter the wood a little bit. I'm sure that's their thinking there. So I'm going to go back over to my table saw and flatten this a little bit with the blade well retracted out of the way. Not too bad. The mouth opening is really slight, and it opened up a little bit from the sanding I did on the sole to square everything up. Just going to cut this off. Just nothing special right now, just cut it off. I'll sand it and make it look nicer later. So we go ahead and put that shortened wedge back in. Okay. Go ahead and give this a shot. I'm still taking way too thick of a shaving. That's a pretty thick shaving. So, I have to say I like a lot. It seems to be working pretty good. So there's kind of one thing left to do, and that's to pretty the plane up. I could round over. Well, first thing I want to do is I want to cut off the area where the pegs are through. I could just round over the edges and just leave it kind of square. They have kind of a fancy, almost reminds me of an old-time car. But I think I'm going to add some curves to it. Drew out a rough shape. I like it. I'm going to pull the blade and the wedge out and go over to the bandsaw and shape this out. Not too bad looking. We'll go ahead and do some final shaping, smoothing. It's very rough from the bandsaw marks. Some of the curves need a little easing. Okay, I'm going to take some curved files. Keep going so I smooth everything up. Okay, that's sanded. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pick a finish for this. Now there are a couple finishes that I've used in the past. Mineral oil, I use that for cutting boards. You could drink it. It's a lubricant laxative. You might not want to drink the whole bottle. In fact, I probably wouldn't want to drink any of it. But it's food safe, so you can use it on things like cutting boards. Plus, you can pick this up at the supermarket, which, how many other woodworking stuff can you pick up at the supermarket? Other thing I use is this tung oil finish, which isn't pure tung oil. It does have some sort of film forming properties, which I believe pure tung oil doesn't. Now I'll probably just put a couple coats. It's a protective thing. So I went to go put this can of tung oil on there. Yeah, so it's not empty, it's just dried. The date, I always put the date on all my cans of stuff when they come in. You forget when you bought it, so this says 11/08. In fact, this was probably the first thing of finish I bought working in woodworking. So, well, that's useless. So, I'm just going to go ahead and use the mineral oil. Thirsty, thirsty wood. Look at that Bobinga. Nice. Well, I'd have to say I'm pretty pleased. This is a fine addition to my shop. I'm glad I made it. And it's kind of gotten me thinking about making some other planes. I enjoyed this, making this, and I take pride in the fact that it was a tool I made. So maybe I'll keep, making some more of these. Till next time. Woods I haven't worked on yet. I've got all over.